The only real God is the one that you believe in. Start looking for the God in others. And if you find you're tuning into a wave, well then I don't know much about being saved.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, friends.
Welcome into another episode of Spiritual Philosophy Chatter with the Joneses. I'm Danny Jones.
And I am Samantha Jones.
And this is episode 78.
78.
What is our topic?
This is the importance of acceptance.
Good.
Yeah.
And it's good since last week was forgiveness. I think it...
Yeah, we had talked about it in the episode a little bit.
Yeah.
And said, it would probably be a good follow-up. It just seems to go in order.
I agree.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, before we hop into that one, do you have anything about forgiveness from last week?
I actually have an email that we received, yes.
Cool.
Let's see. This is from Sadie. Yeah, Sadie. That's a pretty name. You don't hear
Sadie.
that often.
I had a dog named Sadie.
Did you?
Uh-huh.
Oh,
Sheltie.
My ex-mother-in-law did too.
Yeah.
Pretty name. Okay. Anyways, this says, "Hi, Samantha and Danny. Wow, the forgiveness episode made me think and cry. I never looked at forgiveness this way. I had a lot of baggage from my divorce. I have taken it out on every man I have dated since. Now I realize it's about forgiveness. After I listened to your show, I took your advice and I wrote my ex an email and I actually sent it. Wow."
Wow. How did that go, Sadie?
Okay, hold on. I'll tell you where I lost my spot. Okay. I told him I was very sorry and that I hope he will forgive me. In return, I told him I would give him the forgiveness he needs without him even having to ask for it. You're never going to believe what happened next. He sent me a text. We haven't spoke in over 2 years. He wrote, "This is very unexpected. Thank you. You don't have to ask for forgiveness. I hold no resentment. I hope you have found the same peace. Take care."
Wow.
I feel so much better now. I feel like the weight of the world has been lifted off my shoulders. I feel like I can let it go now and maybe even find a stable relationship where I won't hold my past against someone again. Thank you both so much. You don't even realize what you've done for me.
Oh, that's sweet. That's cool.
I have a hard time getting through those. They're always so like, whoa.
Right.
We do these topics and we hope that that's the kind of, response that we'll get. But you never know, you know. Sometimes it's hard. It's hard to take these steps. So, wow, Sadie, congratulations for taking that step. And, yeah.
Right.
Amazing.
Yeah, that was nice. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, for sure.
And congratulations.
Yes, congratulations.
Probably feels better.
I'm sure it does. Yeah, I'm sure it does.
Cool.
So, yeah.
That's it then from last week?
Well, I do have one more thing I wanted to announce.
Okay.
Is that we will officially have merchandise soon.
Yay.
We have ordered samples, and as soon as they get here, we'll take pictures and post them, and you can order them. Like, we have stickers and magnets and coasters that you can get through us, or everything else. There'll be like sweatshirts and tote bags and whatever you want off of Redbubble. And for us, there's no markup. We're not looking to make money off of this. We just want to share. So, if, keep an eye out for it on our Facebook and Instagram page. We'll be posting it as soon as the stuff gets here.
It's exciting.
Yes, it is.
Very exciting.
Very exciting. And thank you to you and Marina for putting together the lovely graphic that we're using. I hope everybody loves it as much as we do.
Yeah, my idea was relatively simple, but I just gave it to Marina and said, "Can you run with this?" And I think she did wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm excited about it.
I am too. I'm excited to share it with our listeners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah. So that's what I have for last week.
Cool. Well, shall we then?
Yes.
All right. Episode 78, The Importance of Acceptance.
The importance of acceptance. And we've had a little talk this morning between the two of us of exactly what we were aiming for in this episode, what we wanted our listeners to understand that we were portraying and getting at. And really, it is why this is important. Why is acceptance, you can look at it as a follow-up step to forgiveness, but it can also be a precursor to forgiveness. But any way that you look at it, accepting the situation, whatever it is a part of the healing process. Mm-hmm. It is. Even if you choose not to forgive somebody, a lot of times you'll still accept what happened in the situation.
Right.
So it is usually a part. So it is very important to talk about.
It's almost like crucial in order to move forward.
Exactly.
So.
It really is. How do you move forward without acceptance?
Touché.
So, as I always do, let me give the definition of acceptance.
All right.
Acceptance is a person's assent to the reality of the situation, recognizing a process or condition without attempting to change it or protest it. That's always the very clinical, in psychology type of definition. But if you break it apart, it's looking at the situation, recognizing it for what it is, realizing you can't change it, and deciding to let it go.
Right.
That's pretty much what it is.
Yeah, the Serenity Prayer was always a good one for me to really sort of understand that.
Yeah, they got it right here. Yeah, that was mine. But you want me to read it?
Do it.
Okay. Serenity Prayer. So, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. And that's not just a prayer that they say like in recovery.
Right.
This is a prayer that you see all over the place.
I've seen it in many places.
I think that's where it kind of got,
Well, it's very simplistic.
Yeah,
I mean, you can choose to say God or not, whatever you want to replace that word with, but I like the word God, so it doesn't bother me. But it wraps it up very quickly and kind of dumbs it down for me.
Yeah, because there is a huge difference.
Well, it talks about two things, acceptance and change. Mm-hmm. But like we just kind of said, that acceptance has to come first before you can move forward.
Yes, that's exactly right. And a lot of times it is really hard to recognize the difference between what you can and can't change. Right. And like it says in this Serenity Prayer, knowing the difference is really, really important. Because the things that we've been through in our lives, whatever they may be, we can't change those. We can let them affect us for the rest of our lives, or we can accept them. And that's what this prayer is saying, is really let me figure out which one is which. And it's hard as humans to not just recognize it sometimes, but to accept it, to actually say, okay, I can't change this, whatever the situation is, or I can't change the person. Right. That's a whole other topic, is just accepting people the way that they are, that one is difficult in itself. But, yeah. So let's see. Something that I do a lot of reading, and I read a lot of articles to put this together to make sure that I'm on the up and up and on the right track. And one thing that every single article that I read wanted to point out is that acceptance cannot be forced. It has to happen when the timing is right for you. If you're in a situation and you haven't gotten to the point where you can, really accept, but you tell yourself that you can, it's not going to happen until you take those other steps. Does that make sense? Kind of like the forgiveness or whatever it is that you need to get to the point where you can accept something.
Yeah, you might have to, as they say, sit in your shit for a while. Yeah. To have it stink bad enough that you accept that it is what it is, and then you decide to make a change.
That's right. Exactly. Right. Sometimes we have to accept things that we don't like and, that we can't change. Like maybe we're in a relationship and the other person wants to break up or they want a divorce and we want to fight that. And there's a lot of people that do this. I read for a lot of women that, are maybe in a bad relationship or in a transition and they don't want to let go. They can't accept that relationship has ended. And what happens when you can't accept it is you stagnate yourself. Kind of like what Sadie was talking about in her email. She gave that forgiveness, but she was stagnant as well because every relationship that she said she had tried to have since then, she was doing the same kinds of things with. Does that make sense? Yeah. So you have to put that behind you and let it go in order to really move on and have another healthy relationship. Yeah.
Well, it's like that meme that you shared earlier today, I think, on Facebook, that something to the effect of, you'll keep facing the same lessons in life until you learn from them.
That's right. And that's hard for anybody to grasp. It really is. But that concept is so important. And I tell a lot of people that I do readings for that. if, a lot of people ask me, well, why do I keep getting the same kinds of things thrown at me? Like I'm, maybe not a good person, or it's almost like they've like accepted that they're the problem when they're not the problem. Well, the problem is the pattern. It's
right.
The lesson hasn't been learned. And so if you keep seeing that these things are coming back, it's because, like you said, you haven't learned the lesson yet. And once you do, then those patterns will stop repeating themselves.
Right. And if you don't learn it here, then you'll come back in another life, different scenario. Different scenario, but same lessons.
Same lessons, yeah, for sure. Nobody wants that. Yeah. I don't want that. I'd rather just learn it all while I'm here.
Well, I mean, I think we'll still come back, but I would rather learn new lessons instead of spending multiple lives. Because let's face it, life is a gift. Okay, I definitely believe that, but it's hard.
Yes.
Okay, it's not easy.
No.
So I don't want to spend multiple of these in thinking in terms of the hardness of it. Learning the same lesson. I just want to get through this part, and then if I have to go live another life and there's some hard times, at least it's a different lesson.
It's a different lesson, yeah.
I'm still moving forward.
Yeah, we don't remember that, obviously. We don't remember our past lives, which thankfully, I mean, that to me is wonderful. But I kind of look at life as a video game, and we've talked about this, and I feel like if you don't learn that lesson, and like, let's say there's a lesson I'm supposed to learn in this life, and I don't, and then I get to the other side and they're like, oh, wah, 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 try again. And then you go back to the next life and you try again. If you don't learn it there, wah, wah, wah. You know what I mean? But you keep trying until you get it right. So why not get it right the first time if you can?
Right.
I mean, I'm not saying, mistakes aren't mistakes. What I'm saying is you can make up for them in this life and change it here so you don't have to keep coming back and, like you said, reliving it because, we don't remember it here, but still nobody wants that.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm usually really transparent with our listeners, and I will tell you that recently I've started to go to therapy to deal with accepting things in my own life. Not things that I haven't been able to let go of that I need to accept, like my mother's death. And the things that happened to me as a child, I talk about those and that my mom wasn't the greatest mom. And I have always felt, well, not always, but since I've connected with my mom and since we've put these things behind us, I feel like I have accepted what happened to me in my past and that I can be okay with what happened because it helps me with other people and all of these things. But my therapist told me that that's only one part of it. That I'm not saying that what she did was okay by accepting it, but I need to be able to say to her, what those things that you did are not okay, and I may forgive you, but I may accept that they happened, but they didn't happen because of me. Does that make sense? And that was something that I had never done before. And so last week I've spent a lot of time with this, and so this is a great time to have this topic because I think that is really important. That even if we look at it from one angle, like, okay, I get why this happened. It happened for a reason. It doesn't mean it's okay. And we're not saying, that was the next thing on my list, is acceptance doesn't mean that you are saying what happened to you is okay or that it was acceptable for someone to hurt you. What it's doing is it's releasing you. It's saying to you, I didn't cause this, whatever it was. This isn't my fault. So why am I beating myself up with what happened? And, I have to accept that this happened and that it wasn't okay for the other person to do it.
True.
Yeah.
I agree.
I appreciated that from her because it definitely opened up a whole thing for me. And so I'm hoping maybe some people that are listening will take that for them as well.
Yeah. True.
Yeah. Let's see. Something else. By struggling against the pain, like when we won't accept something, we are created unneeded suffering for ourselves. Like, let's say, for example, that you just won't forgive somebody for something and you can't accept it and you can't move on, okay? You're the only person in that situation that you're really causing a problem for is yourself. Because the other person in the situation, they're not feeling the same things that you are. Your suffering is not changing them. Does that make sense? It's not changing how they feel and their suffering because they don't know that you're feeling that way. So the only one in this situation that really has to deal with these emotions is you.
Yeah. Yep.
So I asked our listeners to give me some things that maybe they have a hard time accepting in their life. Things that, happened or whatever. So the top things, and I found these interesting. The first thing that people said is they have a hard time accepting that they're aging. And I think we all have that to a certain extent.
Yeah.
You know, for me, it's not necessarily, I mean, I do have issues with like wrinkles and stuff. You know what it is? It's that I feel like I wasted so much time being young and dumb. And now that I know like a lot more and feel a lot different, I wasted all this time, and it's hard for me to accept that I've lost all this time, and, you know, quote unquote, because I haven't lost it, but it's my way of looking at it, you know?
Yeah.
So for me, that's kind of like why I have a hard time accepting that I'm aging, is like, oh, I'm running out of time. I wish I would have had more time to do things, but it's kind of a bad way to look at things.
I find it interesting we put so much emphasis on youth, which is great. It's wonderful. But if we always stayed young, we wouldn't learn.
Yeah.
So it's almost like the age shows that you're learning.
Yeah.
You know, it's inevitable for all of us, but it has such a much more resounding kind of message to me.
It does.
You know,
yeah.
I don't find it unattractive.
Yeah.
You know, the people that want to go make themselves look 20 at 50, I find that kind of unattractive.
I do too.
Personally.
Well, I think too, it's like, what are you trying to attract? What are you trying to do? You know, like I started using eye cream for my crow's feet. I'm not in denial that I'm getting older, but if I can smooth out some of these lines for my own self-esteem, that would be great, you know? But I realize that I can't compete with the looks of a 20-year-old, nor do I need to.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? It's like some men are attracted to that, yeah, and I understand that there are men that have a midlife crisis maybe and are like, oh, a 20-year-old or whatever. But for the most part, I think as you get older, you become more and more attracted to the, you know, people your age. You're still attracted to people your age because not only are they more like you physically, but they think more like you.
Right.
You know, all of those things that change as you get older, it's hard to, you know, maybe associate. Like for me at 43, it might be hard for me to, you know, get along with a 23-year-old because they think so differently. So, of course, you know, you want to stay with somebody that you can have those similar things with. So aging isn't necessarily bad. It's not bad at all. I wish that we wouldn't put that kind of emphasis on it in a negative way, because it's not, doesn't mean we're getting closer to the end of life. Yeah. And if that's a whole different thing, you know, that's a whole other ballpark. But that happens to everybody. And then, you know, you die and you go to an even more beautiful place. So it shouldn't be that scary, if you ask me. That part doesn't frighten me as much.
The aging and accepting that, for, you know, I think for me, it was more about the death, accepting that I'm actually going to die, because I believed for so long that that meant the end.
Yes.
It's not.
Yes.
So I have a way different perception about it and feeling that revolves around that perception. There's no more paranoia and fear and like racing heartbeat when you start thinking about, you know, dying, and I don't feel that anymore.
Yeah.
As an analogy with the aging aspect of it, if I took like one of my favorite trees is like the oak trees we have around here. And these are, you know, hundreds of years old.
Yeah.
Hundreds of years. And they're, the way they just spread out their branches real wide, and they're not their leaves aren't real huge, but they will cast a great shadow just because they're so broad and big.
Right.
And then you look at a little, you know, acorn that fell off or whatever and started growing, and it looks kind of like a weed, if anything.
Yeah.
Not real impressive. It's pretty, it's cute. But when you look at that old oak tree,
Yeah.
and you see and feel its presence and its wisdom and what it's been around to see and experience, there's something much more attractive to me about that.
They hold a lot more energy, too, the older that they are.
For sure, yeah. I could feel them.
Yeah, we like to go hiking in places where there's a lot of oak trees, and you can feel, like if you stand in the middle of, you know, a bunch of them, you can feel the energy. It's amazing. It really is. Trees and nature can really help in a lot of areas, for sure. So let's see, what else? The next one is the sheep mentality. That they have a hard time accepting that, you know, people following the herd. And especially right now, I totally get that. It's like, be informed. Don't just blindly follow, you know? So I can understand that a lot of our listeners having a hard time. That probably wouldn't be on the list if it wasn't the election time, maybe, you know? But because of everything that's going on, yeah, I can see for sure. Third was the way I look. You know, we all have insecurities with the way that we look. And I don't know, like, I don't know. Maybe most people don't accept the way that they look. I've accepted it. For me, the older I get, the more I do accept it. I realize it's not what's important, that we were created in God's image, in our own image, when, you know, we put this life together. And it's these things about us that maybe we don't like that make us individuals. What's beautiful to one person isn't necessarily beautiful to another. So even somebody that on the outside looks like that, you know, they're so beautiful, their looks are perfect.
Right.
That doesn't mean that they're beautiful inside, and it doesn't mean that everybody is attracted to that.
Right. Well, maybe that was something you felt you needed to come back to learn. Like maybe in a previous life, you looked like a supermodel.
Right.
You know, and you thought, this is all wonderful. I love the way I look.
Right.
But maybe you needed to learn to just love the way you feel.
Yes.
Without relying on your looks. That's a possibility I could see. Even for me, you know, I don't have a hair on my head.
Oh,
I mean,
I like that. That's,
so,
you know, everybody's different.
But maybe I had a different life where I had a full head of hair.
Right.
And I relied too much on my looks. So I needed to go into a life where I needed to experience what it was like not to have that. And to rely more on my personality,
right?
You know, or whatever else there would be to work on. But that's just a possibility that I ponder, you know. So I mean, I think we all spent different lives: poor, rich, male, female, and child, mother, father. You know, we have to understand.
Yes, this is a society issue. To be really honest, this isn't an individual issue. This is, I mean, it is on a certain extent, but looking back, like, where did my problems come with self-esteem and the way that I looked? For the most part, it was bullying. It was things that other kids say. And I'm sure that a lot of you listening to this that have issues with your looks, that's probably it. My own mother, and I'm going to put this in a not racist way, because she maybe meant it racist, and maybe she didn't, but she always told me that I had a black person's nose and an Asian person's eyes, okay? And I always took offense to that, because it was like, why would you, you know, not that there's a problem with that, but that's what she always told me. And so I was always self-conscious about my nose and my eyes. And then as I got older, other people started pointing out my nose, and I started getting really self-conscious about it even more. And I even tried, I had deviated septum surgery, and the first doctor that I went to was a plastic surgeon. And I said, can you fix my septum, but while you're there, can you fix the width of my nose? And he said, no, your nose is perfect. It fits your face perfectly. I was like, what are you talking about? It's not. But I get it now. I get it, and I'm glad I didn't mess with it. It does fit my face. Yes, I was bullied about it, not just by my peers, but by my mom in a way. So I was very insecure about it. I'm not anymore. I don't care. Yeah, my eyes are small. Okay, whatever. You know, these are things that make me. Thank you. These are things that make me who I am. You know, they portray to us women that we should be, you know, 6 feet tall and thin, and I'm 5 feet tall and have always been overweight. So it's like I've had all these things just playing against me, and I always let them affect me. But in the last few years, I realized those things don't matter. It doesn't make me who I am. And as you get older, people stop looking at you like that, and they start looking for what's important. And that's where things, you know, I wish that I would have known that. And we've said that to Marina, too. Like, these things that bother you right now as a child or as a teenager, they're not going to bother you when you're older. Right. You know, it's better
But when your parent told you that, you know, I understand how she feels, you know. Yeah. Because you're like, whatever, you don't understand.
Right, exactly, yeah.
And then you go through it.
Right.
And you learn that they did understand on some level, you know, just a generation gap.
Exactly.
But everybody has to go through it. So that awkwardness of accepting yourself for who you are and what you look like and what you're made of. I think we do live in a society that's a little jacked up in that area. The importance that we put on looking young and just, you know, period, looking good.
Right.
I think that's a little bit much.
It is, yeah. Yeah. There's too much importance on it because it really doesn't matter. It's, we should be able to be who we are, and our looks shouldn't. I mean, I'm a good solid 4, and I'm okay with that. We've talked about this before too. Like, if I'm not gonna go for a 10. When I was single, I wouldn't have been going for a 10, and neither would you. You stay on your same kind of level, and that's the way it should be, and that's okay. Right. There's nothing wrong with that. You know what I mean? That doesn't make you who you are. But these different. I don't know. We think too much about looks. Do you know what I mean? We put too much into
too much importance put on it, and not enough importance on the beauty of what age represents. Mm-hmm. And that is knowledge, experience, wisdom, and acceptance of themselves. So it has to start with self-acceptance before you can accept others. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have a whole section on self-acceptance, too, that we'll get into. But I want to finish this list first. And then, let's see, things done to me as a child. And we've kind of talked about that earlier. These are things that you can't change them. They unfortunately are things that have happened. But the best way, I think, for me to look at it is it's not my problem that it happened to me. I mean, it is because it happened to me, but I didn't do it to me. I just have to accept it was something that happened. Right. And it wasn't my fault. Mm-hmm. And that's, if you sit there and you're always thinking, whoa, what was me? And this happened when I was a kid. And so I'm this way because this happened to me. Then you're not accepting it. You're just living in it. Like you said, living in your own shit. Once you can move past it and realize it's just a part of your history and a part of your story, it makes it easier.
But you're right. You're going to have to accept that. You're going to have to accept that wrong has been done to you in this world. Just like someone's going to have to accept that you've wronged them. Yes. But until I don't feel like you can forgive if it's done to you until you've accepted. Right. Yes. Then you can move into the next phase of forgiving that person and vice versa, But yeah, it's important. And I think on a level of, in the world we live in today, of accepting one another for our differences, whether it's you're male, female, black, white, Spanish, Asian, Democratic, Republican, nonpartisan, whatever your difference is, the goal, I feel like, is for us to get to one love, one consciousness. Yeah, and that takes acceptance of one another. You're right. Not trying to change each other, accepting each other. Right. And then focusing on the things you can change either individually or together. But I feel like that has to happen. Right. And it will. It's going to take a lot of kicking and screaming, probably. But I feel like that's important just on that level for this world to get to a point where it can live in peace. Yeah, totally agree. The last one I wanted to talk about that our listeners mentioned is death. Mm-hmm. And not just our own death, but other people's death. And actually, the person that mentioned this is our friend Chelsea, and Chelsea is a medium as well. So this is what she wrote. She said, "Mine is death, which is kind of ironic because of our work, but I do struggle to accept it. Maybe that's the human side of me. You live your entire life loving these people, and then they're just taken away. Mm-hmm. Maybe it makes me selfish, but I just want them back. A final hug or something. Yeah. But I'm glad it's not really the end." Yeah, that was probably the biggest thing for me. I'll tell you what, this experience has made me have to accept a lot of things that I learned differently. Right. And to relearn them. And it was challenging for my mind, but it also freed me. Yeah. So I kind of understand what she means. Like, you don't want to leave your loved ones, and you don't want your loved ones to leave you. Right. But when you really can accept... and for me, it was the way that I kind of, with the path I was going down and learning what I was learning, realizing that wasn't the full truth of, it was part of it, but it was not the full truth. Right. And when I get the full truth, then I can accept that, or begin to accept that. But it's death was probably, like I mentioned earlier, was such a huge one, and it seems so terrifying because we think it's the end. You know what I mean? We tell our world that it's all about how you look and how much money you have, and that death is the end. Yeah. And yet none of that crap is really true.
No, it's not. Not at all.
It's really not.
Not at all.
It's like a plastic front to it all, but
yeah.
The truth is it's just a transition.
It is. It's hard to remember that, and most people don't live their lives like that. And I'm very grateful that we can live our lives like that, and that we know the things we know and see the things that we see, because it does bring this level of peace that I didn't feel before. And it was very, very hard for me to accept the fact that my mom died. It took a long time for me to accept that. And that's normal. That's a part of grief. Actually, there's 5 stages in grief, and the last stage is acceptance. And, they say that these stages of grief, that they don't just okay, that's the final stage, but that doesn't mean that that's the end of it.
No.
Because I can accept today that she died, but tomorrow I might think that it's the worst thing and, whatever, get really upset. It doesn't mean that I haven't accepted it. I'm just human.
Right.
But those things, it's not like the end of your grief. So don't think it is just if I'm just going to accept it and move on.
No.
It's not. Grief is something, especially when it comes to death, that I believe that never truly 100% goes away. It just changes.
Yeah.
And it gets easier.
Yeah.
But that was something that I want to talk about is it grief and how we can move on from grief and accept it. Acceptance doesn't necessarily mean, like we've said, that every day is going to be happy or that you're not going to have those moments of grief. It's really important. For me, it actually took a medium for me to really accept that she died, to really I don't know how to explain it. It was like I left there that day feeling completely different than I did when I walked in. I felt like I could finally accept that what happened, and I could move on in a way that I couldn't before.
Right.
And I love to do that for people because it is very, very healing, and it takes a while.
Right.
Don't think that you can come to me a week after somebody died and be like, I need to accept this. No. There's a process. Right. It all takes time, and in the process, we can't beat ourselves up for the fact that we're not accepting this, because that is a major part of the healing, is the acceptance. It's not in the grief so much.
Yeah.
If you're new to our show, or if you haven't listened to these episodes yet, I wanted to point out that we have done a few episodes on grief that might be good to refer back to. Episode 6 was Surviving Grief. It was one of our most listened to episodes.
It was a good one.
Yeah. It was one of our, first ones to obviously number 6. So now we're more into it, and we, are more chill and everything. So I got to go back and listen to that one because it's probably...
Yeah, it's been a while since I've revisited some of them.
I'm too embarrassed to listen to episode 1 because of the sound quality.
One thing that, it's a resounding message through the Dolores Cannon books that I've read, or I should say listen to, is that every spirit that she connects to, whether it's the person that she's putting under for the past life regression, or it's a spirit she connects to on the other side through this person, but each one of these situations, it's a resounding always that death is as easy as breathing.
Yes.
It's not to be feared. It's not the end. It's as simple as, if I could do another one of my silly analogies of reaching the end of a page, the last sentence of a chapter of a book, and you're just turning the page to the next chapter. So imagine your mom's name being the last word of that last chapter, and it feeling so sad, yet the turn of the page.
Yeah.
And in that analogy would be when it's your time to transition.
Yeah.
Think of the immense, no more grief, the immense celebration that will be there when you are together.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So the grief in their eyes is merely temporary, and it's a very short period of time.
Yeah.
In their eyes. For us, it feels very long.
Yes,
but
for sure.
The other point about this, too, is when it comes to grieving somebody you've lost, is that it can hinder, and I'll take this as an example, I'm not saying this is happening, but it can. Like Eddie Van Halen, who's passed away recently. And we've lost I was reading a list of people in music that we've lost this year. Oh man, I couldn't even, I forgot some of them. And I was like, how did I forget that?
Yeah.
But there's so many people that loved this man and were inspired by this man. And I'm talking worldwide. You know, kids in Japan that want to learn how to play guitar just because of him. I wanted to learn how to play guitar. He was one reason. I had a lot of people I liked. Hendrix, Jimmy Page, you know, Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah.
Those kind of people. But he was a major influence for me. I never ever tried or wanted to try to play like him. He just gave me that encouragement to do so. Well, when you have millions of people that are grieving a loss like that, you can keep that person sort of their energy chained to the world by not letting them go. Mm-hmm. And the point is they need to go because they did their job here.
Right.
Or we're going to hope they did their job here.
Right.
Now it's their time to go and fulfill their job there.
Right.
So the grieving process and the acceptance is important because we have to release their energy.
Yes. Absolutely we do. Yeah. A couple of things that I was kind of pointed out by the other side while you were talking is that you have to let yourself grieve, but don't sit in it too long. I think it took me about 3 years. And I look back now and I think about things that my mom did while I was sitting in that, you know, sitting in my own shit or whatever you want to call it, in my grief that I just couldn't let go. And she would try and do things to make me laugh. And I always knew that they were coming from her. You could like totally tell because I could just be bawling my eyes out and she would do something to like get my attention. So they wanted me to point out, first of all, that if you are grieving and something like that happens, please know that that's coming from them and that they're trying to tell you it's okay.
Yeah, it's not like a sick joke or anything.
No. I remember at the beginning after my mom passed, it was probably a couple of weeks, people were calling, you know, they wanted to know how I was and everything. And there was one phone call that just totally set me off and I started crying and I was hysterical. And the TV was on in the other room and Eminem had just come out with the song My Band, but with D12. And at the end, he's doing this little dance in a sombrero and I just loved it. So I'm sitting here in the living room bawling my eyes out. And I look up, and in the TV in the next room, there's this Eminem dancing, and it was like her going, "Stop it!" You know? I mean, why did I look up at the TV at the exact same moment? I didn't even know the TV was on.
Right.
These are the types of things that they do to say, it's okay, stop crying, it's okay.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
We have to get to that acceptance point, but again, it's not going to be overnight. But try not to sit there too long. They don't want us to. That's really the gist of it, is they don't want us to. They want us to live our lives.
Yeah.
You know, and I would have, if you would have asked me a year after my mom died where I would be in 10 years, I probably would have told you dead. Because I didn't think that there was life after that. But there sure was. Yeah. But you don't see it when you're in the middle of it, you know?
The truth is nothing to discount everybody else in the world beside yourself. But you're on your own path, your own journey, your own life.
Yes.
Everybody in your life is like a cherry on the top, right? It's just like, oh my God, like as if this life itself wasn't enough of a gift.
Right.
Now I get to like feel immense love for people that when they do go, it's devastating because I loved them so much.
Yes.
Well, it's your perception.
It is.
You know, I mean, it's like how you look at that.
Right.
And you have to realize that this is a gift.
Yeah.
Your own life is what is the gift, is what is meant to be experienced. Not somebody else's life or death, okay? That's for them.
Right. That's exactly right.
You enjoy them while you have them. And then when you have to let them go, it's just remember, it's just temporary.
Right. They don't want you to like make the same mistakes that they did. A lot of people do that when they lose somebody, that they almost like detour from their path and start following that person's path that passed. I started doing that with my mom. I was like, well, I don't need nothing, you know. Started falling into the same kind of patterns that she was falling into, but they don't want us to do that. that's that, like you said, that's that person's life. My mom's struggles were her struggles. She had to exit this life for her own reasons. And I have to accept that now I'm here without her, and that's okay. And it sucks, but it's okay.
I've seen people do this kind of like what you're saying, where you're honoring somebody's unhealthiness and carrying that on as a way to honor that person's life, even when you know full well that there was things that you couldn't stand about the way that person behaved. That's not a good way to honor them, because trust me, they're on the other side now realizing the mistakes and learning about the mistakes they did make. Yeah. And some of those things that you felt about that person were probably true. Right. So don't honor the bad things. No. Honor the good things.
Yeah, and it's very common. So if you do this, don't think that it's out of the ordinary. Right. It is very common, and it can be simple things. You know, my mom died from a morphine overdose / heart attack. You would think that I would never want to touch pills or anything. I used to carry my mom's pill bottle filled with Vicodin. Go right down the same path she was going down. But you have to pull yourself out of it. And you have to realize that this is your life, and, you know. But anyways, this isn't a whole episode on grief. But we have done those. And so that's where I was getting with this, is that, episode 4, Surviving Grief, or episode 6, Surviving Grief, sorry. And then episode 41 is Chatting with the Other Side, which is just me doing readings for people and us answering questions from the other side, which does talk a lot about life after death and grief and those types of things. And then episode 53 is Grieving the Unexpected. And this one we didn't talk much about, like, this kind of loss. We talked more about, like, losing your job or losing other things suddenly, because that's when coronavirus had just hit and was starting to take people's jobs. But it's still a very good episode to talk about grief.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
So let's see. Let's move on from the grief part of it, from the acceptance of grief, and move on to self-acceptance, because self-acceptance is really a huge part of our lives. Like, if you can accept yourself, it's a lot easier to accept other people. If you can accept your own faults, you can accept their faults better. So self-acceptance, you know, really super important. Something I want to point out, that self-acceptance is not the same thing as self-esteem. Okay, self-esteem is more, it refers more to, like, how valuable or how worthwhile, or, you know, that, you know, you feel good about this, about your looks, or those types of things.
I think self-acceptance could maybe help your self-esteem.
Yes, it does, yes.
Not the same thing, you're right.
Yes. I actually wrote that here, I think, somewhere. But self-acceptance allows you to embrace all facets of yourself, even the negative, where self-esteem does not. That's where, you know, your self-esteem gets hurt if you're negative. So that's, you know, the positive. Right. Two separate things. Self-acceptance is unconditional and free from judgment, as where self-esteem is all about judgment. It's all about how you judge yourself and how other people judge you.
Yeah, it's kind of your perception of yourself within this realm.
Yes.
Of acceptance.
Yes. If you genuinely want to improve your self-esteem, you need to explore what parts of yourself you can't accept. Then fix it and accept it. That leads to self-acceptance and growth. I think that's important to point out, because I think with a lot of people, we think that we're either our self-esteem is gonna get better, we're gonna feel better about ourselves, and that's gonna make some miraculous change in our lives. But just because maybe you feel better about yourself, maybe you changed your hair, or you lost weight, or whatever, to try and make yourself look better, that doesn't mean that the self-acceptance is going to be any stronger. A lot of people that they go and do things like plastic surgery, you know, maybe Michael Jackson's a good example here. He had like an obsession with plastic surgery because he was never happy. He would never accept the way that he looked. Right. And he thought one nose job would do it. Well, it didn't. So he kept having them and kept having them. And then we see what happened there. And that's because he couldn't accept the way that he looked. Right. And that's very, very sad.
Right. It's, you know, it's a choice, I guess, and that's his journey.
Yes.
You know, if that's how he was able to accept himself, then I guess that's what he had to do. I mean, he's not the first by any means to go overboard.
No, he was just an example.
Yeah, but for sure, yeah. I mean, there's been many, and at first I thought about that as like, oh, it's sad those people can't accept themselves the way they are. Even people that want to do like a transgender surgery. And then I thought, well, maybe that's part of their process. of accepting, you know, and looking at it kind of from that standpoint. I myself never have wanted to really do that. So
right. Yeah, you don't know what it feels like. We have no idea what that feels like, but it's more important, I think, for people battling with those things to accept themselves and not care what other people think. And I love when I see those people that are just like, I don't care. Right. This is who I am.
Yeah, I love
that. There's a lady that I follow on TikTok, and she adopted this little boy, and he wants to wear princess dresses to Disneyland, and she lets him, and she's just like, I don't care, because he's my son and I've accepted him the way he is. And he's autistic, and he's the cutest little thing, but some people just can't accept that. But you know what? She has. This is my kid, and I love him the way he is.
Yeah. I was going to say that. I wish we could somehow start earlier with people, in younger ages to, especially teenage years when we're so worried about that, and how we look and what people think. And if we could somehow get to our minds earlier to teach us that really what relevance, importance that has most of the time is very little.
Yeah, what
not at all.
Does
but
it have? Yeah,
I mean, unless you're trying to be a model or an actor, and they're looking for a particular look, but most of the time it just doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I come across like a lot of things on social media, and I usually don't read the comments, but I wanted to find out what was going on with this lady. She posted on TikTok, and her face was just completely covered in acne, the worst acne I've ever seen. And she was talking about makeup and applying makeup and showing. And I'm thinking, wow, if she didn't maybe wear all that makeup, maybe her skin wouldn't be so bad. Okay, that was my judgment. Mm-hmm. And that's what a lot of people do. They would judge, right? I could have kept scrolling, but I wanted to know what's going on. And so I went into the comments. This lady had cancer, and it was a side effect of her chemo. Wow. And in the comments, people are ripping her apart for how bad her skin was and the things that she should do for her skin. And she's just like, it's not any, I have no control over it. Yeah. But people, you don't know, you don't know what somebody else is dealing with or why they have something that they have. And it's like, just leave them alone, let them, you be you and let them be them. You accept yourself and them accept themselves, and we accept each other as we are. And that would make life so much more peaceful than us always being like, well, damn, you should do something about your acne. You don't think that she knows that she has acne? Right. It's like somebody calling out somebody that they think is, morbidly obese and calling them fat. Yeah, you don't think that she knows?
It's kind of the first sign of somebody that's not accepting their own existence.
That's right.
They're going to start ripping on somebody else, and that's where this world is. If we could get to a point where we all just accept ourselves for who we are, maybe some of that childish behavior would go away.
Right.
But
exactly.
Maybe not. I think it would. I think it'd just be the natural energy, but we have to be able to accept ourselves before we can accept anybody else. And then beyond that, in this planet, we have to accept that we're not alone.
Yeah, this is true too, yeah.
And you think we look different? People walking around this world look different, greatly from each other?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. It's a lot more different when you get off this big blue ball.
Yeah, no doubt.
So, and that's another part I think that this world isn't ready to accept.
No.
As a whole.
No. We like to think of the idea of UFOs and aliens. I love it. I wish that, I could go into one of those things like, what's the guy's name that he brings the UFOs in? That would be so much fun. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of people that they're not ready to accept this. They're not ready to accept that aliens are actually peaceful because of all the movies that they've seen. Right. So this is what our society does to us. Yeah. We're not ready for it because of what Hollywood and movies have done, not because of what's actually fact. We have no reason to believe that these are hostile creatures. If they were, they would have blown us up already because,
we're the hostile.
Right. If anybody should go, so.
Yeah, and there's some other, being over here in Sector 5 of the universe, in Galaxy 382 or whatever it is, talking about the aliens that live over on Earth and how hostile they are. They don't refer to us as humans. No. We're all aliens.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're just happen to be one of the hothead ones, I think. So bummer. The sooner we can accept ourselves and make a change and accept each other on this world, the sooner that we can accept the other life going on out there, which is totally mind-boggling, but we would benefit from it.
Yeah.
If we would accept it, we would benefit greatly from it.
We would, if we would, like, welcome them. But it's, it takes a global consciousness, and right now we're so angry. This planet is so angry. It's not just this country. It's
the planet.
It is the planet. It's happening all over the place, and until we all can calm down, the energy is just getting stronger and stronger because we're all uptight. So, hopefully once this year is over and this election, because there's elections all over the world, hopefully we can bring those vibrations, to a better level and maybe work on some of these things.
Yeah.
I hope as a society, They say the Great Awakening's coming. I'm ready for it.
Well, I mean, it's coming, but I think it's happening.
It's happening, yeah. But like where we shift consciousness a little bit, we start thinking differently. I mean, really, like the self-acceptance, if I would have done this as like a topic like 5 years ago, I couldn't say the same things.
Right.
We have to try and look at things differently than what we've been shown our whole lives and what people make us think is the right way, and just live our own lives.
Yeah.
I
have no doubt that there's people out there, even very close to me and you, that either know we do this or listen to it or choose not to. But I know there's people out there that think, oh, those two have lost it.
Yeah.
They're cuckoo.
Okay.
And that's all great. But this is part of that great awakening.
Yes.
And so 1,000 years from now, when this world is still going, and things are peaceful, and someone stumbles across this on YouTube or whatever digital media
still left,
platform is going on at that time, might look at that and look at the year and say, those are pioneers.
Yeah.
They put themselves out there, took a chance and a risk at trying to share things with people about truth, real truth, and really what's important.
Right.
Accepting our existence in this reality, in this world, and then accepting all the possibilities that come after all this, and what's on here, what's out there after we get off this planet. There's so much it can become a wormhole and
for sure.
pretzel your brain and things like that. But they want us to ponder on a greater scale.
Right.
They want us to be in awe of our existence, but accept it.
That's right. Yeah.
Because it's a gift.
Important. Yeah.
And when you get a gift, you usually accept it.
That's right. It doesn't mean that we're supposed to accept and settle. That if we're not the person that we want to be, that we're just supposed to accept that. Because I think that for both of us, when we came into this relationship, neither one of us was the person we really wanted to be. But we really didn't know how to become the people that we wanted to be, because we've been stifled our whole lives by other people telling us, you're crazy, or, that'll never work, or, you'll never amount to anything, or whatever it is. And through this process, we have learned how to accept ourselves for what we are, to be what we are, no matter what people think. That's the most important thing for me, like with our lifestyle, is I don't care what anybody thinks, because I'm happy.
Yeah.
And I've accepted my life and myself. And if somebody doesn't like it, then they have a problem with their own life, not with mine, because I'm happy. Do you know what I mean? That's where I never was there before. I was never there before. I wanted people to be like, oh, she's got this and she's got that, and she's, trying to aim for other people's acceptance and not be the person I wanted to be. And when you finally become the person you want to be, and you accept yourself and accept your life, damn, life changes. It really does.
For the better.
For the better. Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
Yep.
But you're right. It's, this is, you've said this to me before, it's like envision your life as a movie.
Yes.
This is your movie.
It's your movie.
You're the star.
Yep.
It's your gift. It's your leading role. And you can manifest and make it what you want.
Right.
You have a lot of other roles being played by other people.
Yeah.
But now step out of the scene for a moment and jump in that actor's role. That is their movie.
Yes.
Okay, they're the star. It's not your job.
Right.
but just to get an idea of how this is all working. We're all living in our own kind of a movie.
Yep. We're going to do a whole episode on it.
Yeah.
Like that and, what's the other, like, I can't remember. There's something else that goes with it, but it's a similar concept. Living in a simulation. That's what it is. It's a trip because you really do have to think about it that way. And that's not being selfish. That's not to say this is my movie and I'll do what I want. That's not it at all. Think about the characters in another movie and how you would want them to act. And if you saw that, they weren't pulling themselves out of something and they were just letting themselves wallow, wouldn't you be like, come on, character, get up and do something?
Right.
So you have to think about yourself that way, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of, it's a good analogy. I try to use a lot of analogies to help dumb things down for myself.
Yeah, me too. It's easy.
But it is a good analogy because I feel like, wow, could you imagine like getting cast as like the leading role in an Oscar-winning movie?
Right.
What a gift that is.
Exactly.
So you don't want to screw it up.
No.
You want to know your lines. You want to do it right. You want to play your cards right and make sure this is an unforgettable performance.
Yeah. And you can guide your own story.
Yeah.
That's another big part of it is,
right.
guide your story. It's your story. It's your movie.
For sure.
Yep.
But it's going to start with accepting.
Yeah.
Accepting yourself, accepting your childhood.
Yep.
And what's happened to you. Accepting the things that you've done.
Yes. That's another one. Absolutely.
To others.
Yep.
Because you can't accept and forgive someone else if you can't accept and forgive yourself.
Right.
And, accepting the future and the possibilities and what's beyond all this. I mean, acceptance to me is key.
Yes.
It is key to life. Besides, love, peace and love and compassion and understanding.
Right.
It's acceptance.
Right. Exactly. And the future may not go exactly how you anticipate it's going to go. We get these ideas in our head of this is what's going to happen and you just have to accept that wherever life is supposed to go for you, that's where life is supposed to go for you. That's a whole other topic.
Well, yeah, because you were just hired to play the leading role. You didn't write the story, the script.
That's right.
So you just got to roll with it.
Yep. Exactly. I think once we accept that is... something that I actually wish I would have posted that on Facebook today because I did come across something like that I've become so accepting of what's going on with our society that if a portal opened and I could just walk through it, I wouldn't be surprised anymore. Do you know what I mean? I'm just going with it.
Yeah.
I'm just accepting that this is what is happening,
right.
And I can't control it because there's a lot of people that want to control. They want to control the Rona. They want to control politics, right. And you can't. You can't control it. The best thing that you can do for yourself is just to accept it, accept that this is what's happening, and go with it, and stop fighting it.
Change is inevitable.
Yes,
and you have to accept it because I think there is, whether people want to admit it or not, there is a huge portion of the population of this world that is thinking that is thinking, why does it seem like everything's changing at once?
Yeah.
And on all the things that we thought were maybe baloney or legend, mystical stories, now are starting to be like, is this reality? This was in movies.
I ask myself that every day.
Maybe there's a reason they were brought into movies for us to absorb and accept first.
Yeah.
To help us accept when the actual reality did happen.
For sure. Yeah. I say that all the time. You never know.
Yeah, you don't.
Yeah.
But, when I say, you're the leading role, you didn't write the script, well, at least as far as your conscious mind here knows.
Right.
You didn't write the script, but in actuality, you did.
Yeah, you did.
From the other side, you've set this plan to come here and do this.
Yeah.
But that memory's wiped clean, so it's like an even playing field for everybody,
Exactly.
And it helps you, in general, to stay focused in this role.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure.
So, but it's, there's a lot to it, but it is the key, and it's been hard. I'm not going to say it's been easy at all. And sometimes something new comes up in your life, and you have to accept it.
And it's always going to be like that. It's not, life isn't always going to be just the way you want it to be. There's always going to be things you have to accept. It's just life, and that's okay. That's a part of our journey. It's part of our movie.
Change is inevitable and it's exciting. If
It
everything
is, and
stayed
it's
the
scary.
same and we all looked the same, it would be boring.
Right. Yep.
So,
For sure.
but
Yep.
that's my story and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, I think that's all we got time for.
Yeah?
And I don't have much more, so I think we're good.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, that was a good one.
I think so.
Thanks
I think it was very important, important follow-up, because they do. Forgiveness and acceptance, they really do go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's all kind of interwoven, and you just get into these things and you realize, wow, that's directly connected to that, and that's
Right.
connected to that. And so
Yes.
they're all, again, in the same idea of one consciousness. All these things are separate, but they're all connected.
That's right.
The
Yes.
same as we are.
Yeah.
So.
I told you next week I want to do an episode on mental health and mental illness, because I've seen it. Right now, I'm seeing more and more people exhibiting signs of anxiety and depression and stress and other things that are coming out, and we need to talk about it to be able to help them. There's more and more young kids that are taking their own lives because of mental health issues, and so it goes with this too, you know, accepting things and accepting who you are as a part of mental health. So yeah, I'm looking forward to talking about that next week, and then after that I want to do the one about this living in a simulation and video game type, because that'll be cool.
Yeah.
We already have a lot of interest in that. So
Cool. Very
Yes.
good. Well, before we say goodbye to all our friends,
yep.
shall you share your page?
Let's see. So my website is SamanthaJonesPsychicMedium.com. You can learn about me there. And if you'd like to send us a message for the show, spiritualjoneses@gmail.com. And now you can also go on Redbubble and find our merchandise. Just search Spiritual Joneses. You'll find it.
There was all kinds of like mugs, t-shirts, hoodies, bags,
Yep.
whatever.
Everything you can imagine. Magnets, everything.
Yeah.
So it's going to be fun.
Cool.
Yay.
I'm excited to wear one.
Yeah, me too.
Awesome.
And you, sir?
Yes, for my art page, djonesartcollection.com. For the web, at djonesartcollection for Facebook and Instagram. And for the music, gypsybrown.com. For the web, at gypsybrownmusic for Instagram, and at gypsybrownband for Facebook.
Yay.
That's all I got.
Fantastic.
Well, we hope everybody got something out of it.
Hope you did.
I always do.
I did too.
It's like revisiting an old friend, but it's good.
Yeah, a lot of times the research that I do, it's directed at me as well. It's not like I don't have these issues. It helps me a lot. I think it helps both of us for sure.
Yeah, I think it's important for people to know, as much as we're sharing this with whoever's listening.
Yeah,
we're sharing it with ourselves.
Absolutely, and we're learning.
We're reminding ourselves. You know, it's you have this kind of inner thing that needs to be comforted.
Yeah,
your spirit needs to be comforted.
Totally.
And so when you do these things, you're helping your soul. So,
yes.
And you're learning. That's what we're here for.
That is what we're here for.
So, but yeah, I got a lot out of it. So thank you.
Yeah.
And we hope you guys did too.
Yep.
And we hope everybody has a great week. And until next week, peace and love.